You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Tuesday, December 9th, 2014, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us here for the next 2 hours of news, interviews, information, music, comedy, and more, all by, for, and about the cannabis community. We are here every weekday at 3 p.m. Pacific Time with replays at 6 p.m., 3 a.m., and 6 a.m. Pacific Time to fit your schedule no matter where you may be on this glorious planet of ours. In today's show, we've got all sorts of great stuff to bring to you, including a preview of the forthcoming International Cannabis Business Conference taking place in San Francisco, California on a Sunday and a Monday, of all things, February 15th and 16th. And I'm excited about this because I will be there covering the conference and interviewing some of the speakers, who will include Ethan Nadelman, Amanda Ryman, and Carl Hart, three of my favorite people in drug law reform, plus all of the vendors that will be out there on the floor looking to make it in the new green rush. So we're going to give you a look at some of those vendors. We've got a testimonials video from a lot of the vendors there at the conference, as well as my interview with a truly international participant in that last conference from Patron Dispenser Company. So check that out at 1:30. Also on the show today, in the Radical Rant, I am going to take it to congressional Democrats who once again are failing to exhibit any sign of being vertebrates and allowing the Republicans to undo Washington, D.C.'s marijuana legalization initiative that passed by 70%. That's right. The final vote came in, final vote tallies. It crested 69, made it all the way to 70%. I can't think of anything in Washington, D.C. that gets passed with 70% support. So we're going to talk about that in the Radical Rant at the end of the show. Also on the show today, we're going to go behind the headlines because Nevada has qualified legalization for its 2016 election. I'm going to take you behind the text of that initiative to show you what would become legal in the state of Nevada if this were to pass in 2016. What am I saying? When this passes in 2016. Then in the Drug War Data Mine, we're going to take a look at a infographic produced by Rehabs, some rehab facility, I forget the exact name, that may be, as Leap put it, one of the worst infographics ever made on drugs and drug addiction. We'll show that to you in Drug War Data Mining. But we'll start things off with the 420 radio news. And the big news headline, of course, is Nevada getting on the ballot for marijuana legalization in the next presidential election. But also we've got some polls showing that a majority of Americans want the states to be left alone to set their own marijuana policies. We got a poll on medical and recreational marijuana legalization in the state of Wyoming. The collectives in Tacoma are facing shutdown from the city council. We've got a gun buyback being sponsored by dispensaries in the Bay Area, and an interesting tale of a New Mexico high school student's creative writing assignment that paired Jesus with marijuana and forced his teacher to resign. All that coming up in the 420 radio news. And then in our hour 2 Toker Talk Radio, we're going to look at the changes proposed for Washington's medical marijuana law and a story that's near and dear to me. Hecklers interrupting Kevin Sabet's latest think tank prohibition promotional presentation at the Heritage Foundation. Representative Andy Harris was there as well. He's the representative trying to block DC's marijuana legalization. Lots of politics in today's Russ Belville show. Stick around. We're back right after these sponsor messages in about a minute and a half.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on 420radio.org.
Hey, this is Willie Nelson for Normal. And I smoke pot and I like it a lot. I learned a long time ago that marijuana is a lot safer than alcohol. There's nothing wrong with the responsible use of marijuana by adults. It's time we stopped arresting and started respecting those who smoke marijuana responsibly. To learn what you can do to help, contact Normal at norml.org or call toll-free 888-67-NORMAL.
420radio.org presents the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour with Herb Thrasher and Radical Russ from Portland, Oregon. Herb Thrasher Flower Hour is 2 hours of unrestrained rock, metal, punk, and alt-country music, interviews, concert bootlegs, and sports with America's hardest-rocking marijuana activist stoner, Herb Thrasher. Live 2 hours Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific, with replays at 8 and 5 on Fridays and replays Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific on 420radio.org. Five of the last 9 major party candidates to run for president, 3 of the last 9 vice presidential candidates, and the last 3 two-term presidents have all smoked pot. Marijuana, the gateway drug to the White House. This is the Russ Belville Show. It's time for the 420 Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Transcripts of 420 Radio News are available daily on our website at 420radio.org. Now, here's Russ Belville with your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. On Monday, Nevada's Secretary of State Ross Miller approved an official petition to add marijuana legalization to the 2016 November ballot. The Coalition to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol needed to file 102,000 signatures, but ultimately filed about 200,000. If passed, the measure would establish marijuana cultivation and distribution businesses, as well as legalize adult possession of up to an ounce. The measure leaves intact the medical marijuana law and allows home grows of 6 plants per person, up to 12 plants per household, and allows possession of an 1/8 ounce of concentrates. The measure will set buffers of allowed marijuana establishments to be 1,000 feet from schools and 300 feet from community facilities. Licenses will also be rationed by county population with a limit of 130 statewide. Licenses will cost a non-refundable $5,000 fee, plus $10,000 license fee for an infused product manufacturer, $15,000 for a tester or distributor, $20,000 for a retail store, and $30,000 for a commercial grow. A majority of Americans want each state to decide its own marijuana laws and don't want federal interference with those that legalize cannabis. A report released Monday by centrist think tank Third Way says 60% of American voters believe states should decide whether to legalize marijuana, and 67% of Americans want a new federal law that would make states that legalize medical or recreational marijuana safe havens from U.S. laws against cannabis, as long as the states have a strong regulatory framework. This waive but restrict framework would provide consistency and protect public safety more effectively than either current law or the other policy proposals on the table, Third Way says in the report. Some members of Congress have been working for years to reform U.S. marijuana laws. About a dozen bills were introduced in 2013 aimed at limiting the federal government's ability to interfere with states' legal marijuana programs. Congress has failed to pass any of those bills. Most Wyoming residents say they're in favor of legalizing marijuana for medical, but not recreational use, according to a University of Wyoming poll. The poll, which included 768 residents statewide and was released last Wednesday, found 72% of respondents support marijuana use if it is prescribed by a physician, but only 35% support its recreational use. Support for recreational marijuana has increased slightly since a 2000 University of Wyoming poll, which found that 23% of residents were in favor. The poll also found 62% of residents were in favor of reducing penalties for marijuana possession and not having jail sentences, while 32% support jail sentences. All medical marijuana collectives in Tacoma, Washington could soon have to shut down. City leaders addressed plans last week to send out letters to cease operations as early as January, as they are not licensed under Initiative 502. Both business owners and patients are now expressing concerns. An estimated 50 collectives could soon be forced to close their doors. The Tacoma City Council revealed a plan to shut down unregulated pot shops in the start of the new year. Quote, ultimately, with these collective gardens, we respect the work that they've done and the work that went into this process, but there's just such legal ambiguity, and another concern is that there's such a proliferation or concentration of these stores in certain neighborhoods, end quote, said Tacoma City Council member Anders Ibsen. Recent research shows cannabis correlates to reduced domestic violence. This Saturday, it does one better and helps take guns off the streets. San Francisco cannabis dispensaries Barbary Coast, Grassroots, and the Green Door are helping to provide $40,000 for a gun buyback on the anniversary of the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre this weekend. Honoring all lives lost to violence, United Players will conduct the buyback on Saturday between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. at 1038 Howard Street in San Francisco, between 6th and 7th Street. Handguns are worth $100 and assault weapons are worth $200. Following the event, organizers asked folks to join them at the UN Plaza from 2 to 5 to mark the 2-year anniversary of the massacre of 20 children and 6 adults in Newtown, Connecticut. When a New Mexico high school student wrote about Jesus and marijuana for a creative writing assignment, that caused some controversy in Rio Rancho, and now a teacher at the school is off the job. The assignment was to take a fairy tale or legend and rewrite it in modern times. One student changed the biblical story of Jesus handing out bread and fish to the poor to Jesus handing out marijuana to the sick. This has been your 420 Radio News for Tuesday, December 9th, 2014. I'm Russ Belville. You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420radio.org.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
The Russ Belville Show reminds you to never smoke and drive impaired. Hang out for a while. Share.
There's so much I worry about as a mom. Stephen Harper thinks that organized crime should continue to profit from marijuana prohibition. Imagine regulating marijuana like alcohol and cigarettes with a strong and clear educational message, making it more difficult for my kids and your kids to access. Drug dealers don't ask for ID. Stephen Harper does not have the kind of judgment we need to protect our children, authorized by the Normal Women's Alliance of Canada.
Welcome back, everyone. 14 after the hour. Time for us to go behind the headlines. And as we reported earlier, Nevada's Secretary of State has approved the petition to add marijuana legalization to the 2016 November ballot. That's the first state so far to be confirmed for 2016, although it is expected that California and possibly Maine will have something on the ballot come 2016, but we'll definitely be voting in Nevada in 2016. And of course, we'll bring you coverage of that on our Marijuana Election Night 2016. I guess we already have to start planning for that. Now, this legalization measure has a lot of details in it that I'd like to get to here. First of all, it would establish marijuana markets like we've got in the other 4 legalization states. So there will be cultivation businesses, infused product manufacturers, licensed testing facilities, and retail facilities. So those will all be subject to regulation, license fees, taxation, and so forth. And personal possession of up to an ounce of marijuana and an 1/8 ounce of concentrates. So pretty standard when we look at legalization throughout most of the states. The measure explicitly has language in it that says it does not alter or amend the medical marijuana law in any way. But from now on, I'm going to add the caveat that you can't legalize marijuana in a medical state without it affecting the medical marijuana law. I'm just going to say it from now on. You just can't do it. If the law says that it doesn't affect medical marijuana, what you end up with is two systems for the government to look at and compare and start to wonder why they have two separate systems. So understand that going for legalization does necessarily mean re-examining your state's medical marijuana law, even if the law doesn't say it's going to touch it. The law would allow home grows, 6 plants per person, 12 plants per household. So a couple roommates could each have their 6 plants, but 3 roommates couldn't each have 6 plants, right? 3 roommates would have to be 4 each, I suppose. And of course, the taxes and the regulations. Some of these include a buffer of the marijuana establishment. So a marijuana establishment can be anywhere within 1,000 feet of a school. And school is pretty liberally defined as any educational place, for kids and adolescents and so forth. And it adds a 300-foot buffer from community facilities. And community facilities are defined as daycares, parks, playgrounds, swimming pools, churches, synagogues, and any other primarily religious structure. And so a 300-foot buffer, not too much of a distance, but does increase the number of locations that won't be able to be licensed marijuana facilities. It also gives counties, cities, and towns the control over zoning land for marijuana establishments. It doesn't clearly say they can't ban them through zoning, so I would have to presume that means that they can until a court tells them otherwise. The measure explicitly allows employers to continue their so-called drug-free workplace policies. So even with legalization, they can still require piss tests to get a job. They can still fire you for testing positive for using something legal. Landlords will also explicitly be allowed to ban marijuana, quote, smoking, cultivation, processing, manufacture, sale, delivery, or transfer, end quote, on their properties. I guess you could still possess marijuana in your rental if it somehow magically appeared there out of thin air, since you can't have it delivered to you. You can't engage in delivery to the location. So if it magically appears out of thin air, I suppose you can possess in your rental. And then I guess you could only eat it raw because you can't process it, you can't smoke it, and I imagine vaporization would be considered some sort of process. Now, the licenses would be rationed by county population. It works out to a total of 130 statewide. If you go county by county, it's depending on population. So any county that's over 700,000 population, and there's only one, that's Clark County, Las Vegas, right? They would be allowed to have up to 80 pot shops in Clark County, in the Las Vegas area, up to 80. The next level is like 700,000 to 100,000, and that's like Washoe County, the Reno area, would be allowed to have 20. And then every other county in Nevada is below 55,000 in population. They would each get to have 2 pot shops per county. Esmeralda County in Nevada only has like 600 people in it. I just learned that today doing the research for this. So it will be limited. There'll be a rationed number of these retail facilities, and understand that there's nothing stopping any of these counties from enacting bans, as far as I'm reading into this. As far as the licenses, it's a non-refundable $5,000 fee just to apply, and you could be rejected and you're out your $5,000. If you get accepted for one of these limited licenses, it's $10,000 if you want to be an infused product manufacturer, $15,000 if you want to be a testing facility or a marijuana distributor, $20,000 if you want to be a retail store, and $30,000 to set up your commercial marijuana grow. Marijuana is also going to be taxed at 15% excise tax at the cultivation stage, and the state sales tax of 6.85%, and any existing local taxes, which can be up to 1.25% in some places in Nevada. But of course, nothing's stopping these localities from instituting their own outlandish local taxes on marijuana, which I bet you're going to see them doing in 2015, just like the cities in Oregon rushed to pass their local taxes before the passage of Oregon's Measure 91 legalizing marijuana. So you can expect marijuana in Nevada is probably going to get taxed pretty high.
Looks like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking.
Hey, it's 4:20 in the Mountain Time Zone. So Denver, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Pueblo. All you guys, get your marijuana groove on. And anybody else who feels like joining them, you got my permission. We'll be back with drug war data mining and the worst drug war infographic I've seen in a while, right after these messages. 420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio. Hey tokers and tokettes, Radical Russ here for the Canador, a practical solution to keep herbs from drying. The Canador is the perfect airtight storage system for your fine herbs, from the half-inch thick walnut and cherry wood construction, clear top perforated jars for storage, and the humidity bead system that keeps your herbs at a perfect 65% relative humidity. I keep all my herbs in the Canador, and you should too. Check out Canador.com for more information. Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation, America's #1 daily call-in show for the cannabis community. Every weekday at 4 and 7 Pacific on 420radio.org. Get.buzz. .buzz is the internet platform that fuels community interest, excitement, and new experiences. .buzz is the premier online destination for internet users seeking the latest news on a variety of topics. .buzz appeals to groups active in blogging, communications, journalism, advertising, and marketing. .buzz offers registrants a stronger alternative to the shrinking namespace of existing top-level domain names, such as .com, .net, and .org. Get your name now at get.buzz. Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining. All right, welcome back, everyone. 22 and a half after the hour, and I was pointed by Substance.com to the worst drug infographic ever seen. And this is something that was created by drug rehab programs, a rehab group called Drug Addict Profiles. And it exhibits so many stereotypes, condescension, and outright bigotry against drug users that it must be pointed out. First of all, in their drug addict profiles, they each contain a stereotypical kind of cartoon. This one starts with Matt the meth head, who's kind of tweaked out and hands all shaky and, the sunken eyes and the messed up teeth. And every drug user is classified in like the Kiss Army. Do you remember the Kiss Army? Well, I guess this is the drug addict army because Matt the meth head is an addict first lieutenant, according to his list here, and smells terrible, is skinny, sweaty, and has rapid eye movement. Also, according to the infographic, it explains that methamphetamine is a drug that does not allow much room for casual use. Users quickly become addicts. That's absolutely not true. Most people who use drugs, any drug, do not go on to develop a problem with it. It is a minority of users. They also include Andy the alcoholic, who's an addict major, neglects activities, spends majority of time at bars, fat guy with a stained wife beater t-shirt, of course. And for each substance, they have this little star rating of the chances of death by substance. 8 out of 10 for Andy the alcoholic, which of course is grossly overstated. While alcohol is a dangerous drug, your chances of death by it are nowhere near 80% if you're using it. Of course, we get Steve the Stoner. He's listed as a private first-class addict. So I guess, at least as far as that goes, they're declaring us the least of the addicts out there. Steve the Stoner, of course, wears long hair and a headband and has a tie-dyed t-shirt. Says, marijuana addiction has clear signs and indicators. Marijuana addiction is simply an uncontrollable urge to possess and use the drug. Those with marijuana addiction are not able to stop using the drug even if they wish. Often a person with marijuana addiction will make continuous excuses about why now is not a good time to stop using the drug. Marijuana addiction is a disease that affects millions of people every year. Red eyes and dry mouth, unable to sleep without the drug, reduced activity, spends lots of time getting high, 6'2", 120 pounds, skinniest stoner ever, and chances of death by substance, 1 out of 10. So yeah, thanks for rating it the lowest, but there's no chance of death by the substance of marijuana. It should be listed as a 0 out of 10. They continue by talking about Brandon the Cokehead. He's an addict colonel. Cocaine is the most abused stimulant in America. It's not a new drug, but considered the caviar of recreational drugs. Running nose, snorts a lot, loses weight quickly, rarely hungry. Chances of death, 6 out of 10. Of course, Brandon the Cokehead wearing a nice suit and tie. Harry, the heroin addict, this one drowsy most of the time, vomiting and constipation is normal, 9 out of 10 chances of death. Of course, Harry, the heroin addict with track marks all over his arm and listed as the addict general. It is estimated that 25% or more of street users are considered physically dependent. And again, while heroin is a strong and addictive drug, the majority of people that use it do not develop dependence problems. We also have Edward, the ecstasy addict. He's, of course, got the glow sticks and the baby pacifier. Ecstasy addict here, 5 out of 10 chances. He's an addict sergeant major. And is used mostly for its hallucinogenic properties, is not physically addictive in the way that drugs like cocaine, nicotine, and heroin are. Many users are, however, addicted to the emotional state they reach on the drug. Some feel they cannot live without it and become regular users. And continuing, we end up with Pam, the prescription pill addict. She's an addict first lieutenant. And it points out that prescription drugs are the second most commonly abused category of drugs. Estimates that 20% of the people in the United States have used prescription drugs for non-medical purposes. Death chances listed as 8 out of 10. So this comes from the group Rehab Programs. And this is you can find this on the internet, Rehab Programs, and again shows the addict chance of death by substances ranging from 10% for marijuana to 90% for heroin. Probably the worst drug infographic I have ever seen, and this little fine print at the end does not excuse it.
420 Radio, the activist radio station. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at omarfigueroa.com.
NORMAL stands for Responsible Adult Cannabis Use. If cannabis use is causing problems in your life, consider taking a break or seeking medical assistance. Consider ceasing cannabis use if you have a family history of mental illness. Don't drive or operate heavy machinery while impaired by cannabis use. Cannabis use is not without risks, even though the risks may be far less than those posed by legal drugs.
Are you a hypocrite? If you live a closeted cannabis lifestyle, you are. Read about 7 people living a closeted cannabis lifestyle who are on the verge of coming out in The Hypocrites by Mara K. Eaton. Available at areyouahypocrite.net. You can purchase the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, also available on iTunes. Check out Mara K. Eaton on Facebook as well. Learn more at areyouahypocrite.net.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Welcome back, 29 and a half after the hour, and we are so excited about the forthcoming International Cannabis Business Conference in San Francisco, California. We are being sponsored by the ICBC to both promote the upcoming conference and to report from the upcoming conference. It'll be February 15th and 16th at the Hyatt Regency in San Francisco, California. And I believe the tickets are $4.99, and that's not $4.99. That's $499. But the amount of networking and information you'll get in these 2 days are well worth it from a business owner's perspective. I was at the first International Cannabis Business Conference in Portland, Oregon, just this year, and met many vendors from around the world and around the United States who are eager to get involved in the forthcoming green rush. So if you are one of these entrepreneurial types, you'll want to make room in your calendar for February 15th and 16th at the Hyatt Regency in San Francisco, California. Some of the speakers that will be included at the event will be Ethan Nadelman, who is the executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance, and Dr. Amanda Ryman, who is one of the policy managers at the Drug Policy Alliance. If you've never seen Ethan Nadelman speak, you definitely need to make your way to this conference, because just go Google Ethan Nadelman, check him out on YouTube. If there is someone who is clearer and better prepared to speak to the eventual need to legalize not just marijuana, but to reform all of our drug policies, that person is Ethan Nadelman. Amanda Ryman, good friend of the show. She's been a guest on the show before. She's done numerous studies of the California medical marijuana system and can speak with authority to the need to make changes there for 2016. And probably the star of the show will be Dr. Carl Hart, the neuropsychopharmacologist from the Columbia University, who is a tenured professor there and the author of High Price. We're going to give you a look at some of the vendors from the Portland conference and their testimonials, plus my interview with one of them, starting right now.
Join us for the next International Cannabis Business Conference in San Francisco, California at the Hyatt Regency, February 15th and 16th.
It's a conference we're having here at the Oregon Convention Center. It's the International Cannabis Business Conference, and Alex Rogers is putting this on, and just been remarkable. A great set, a diverse set of vendors, and a fabulous set of speakers.
There's been a great crowd, great vendors, great attendees. The feedback has been extraordinary. I've had so many people tell me that this is the best conference they've ever been to.
And I'm here to learn how to tell the future. I think I'm getting a lot of great information. The people here are great, and it's not much stress. And they have free coffee, and someone's walking around with sandwiches.
The beauty of ICBC is meeting all the activists, lawyers, gardeners, and people on the forefront of providing medicine and good product to people and patients.
Very knowledgeable people from all over the world. It's been a great experience.
I've heard some amazing things already. There was a congressman here who was speaking about where the industry is headed, where the laws are headed federally, which is very important if you're going to be investing in the cannabis business.
My name is Ed Rosenthal, and it was a pleasure for me to come to this conference. It addressed the needs of the local people of Oregon.
Amazing. The speeches have been incredible. I've met a lot of people that have been great, just making contacts with different dispensaries and grow houses and kind of forming partnerships.
We're here at this conference to talk to testing laboratories and producers and processors about laboratory accreditation and what it can do for them.
And what we're about is about promoting organics in the cannabis industry.
Dope Magazine stands for something, defending our patients everywhere. The magazine allows us to actually put input and relevant articles out into the public.
Oh, it's great. It's our direct target market. Really, anybody who's trying to get into the cannabis industry, trying to start a business, trying to make sure that they're doing things right, doing things legitimately. That's what we're here to do, just to help the industry and make sure everything's done the right way.
Give Alex, Mr. Rogers, full credit because this is a really good event. I like it a lot. I've got many good contacts, and I hope we will meet again.
They got a stack of business cards here, meeting a whole lot of new folks that are just getting into the business, but also a few of the business people and a lot of the activists that I've been working with here in Oregon for the past 10 years. So it's a combination of family reunion and kind of a speed dating session.
And that is just some of the things at the International Cannabis Business Conference. We're going to keep this thing rolling. Join us for the next International Cannabis Business Conference in San Francisco, California at the Hyatt Regency, February 15th and 16th.
That's Cass Haley with his cover, the Police classic, Walking on the Moon. You're listening to 420 Radio's coverage of the International Cannabis Business Conference, Day 2. I'm Radical Russ, and joining us here at the desk we have Luca Fryer, who's the founder, and is it patron or patron? Patron, okay. Professional wax, oil, and paste system. Luca, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us what you're involved with. Obviously, wax, oil, and paste, but in what respect?
What we do is a special system that distributes your oils and waxes in a professional manner. It's the only super precise system in the world at the moment that works perfectly with both waxes and pastes and oils, of course. We have a heated system that can heat up the content so the waxes become fluid, and we can dispense them with extreme precision.
Oh, okay. So this is taking your concentrates and being able to dole them out and say 1 milligram or 2 milligram or some measurement.
Yeah, actually it goes all the way down to 0.01 milliliter.
Oh, wow.
Is the unit on the scale. So we achieved that by a special thread design.
Okay.
Which, let's keep it a secret.
Okay.
It's better like that. And what we do, what you can do with it is you can actually distribute really tiny amounts when we're speaking about special patients like children maybe, or new patients, the cancer patients who never met cannabis and its effects before. So there are problems with trust issues, I think, when patients are trying new stuff and you say, just take a grain of rice, and they will say, okay, which rice? Basmati rice, long grain, the short grain, and
quinoa.
Yeah.
So this would, I imagine this also would be something of use to those who are making infused products like, cookies or muffins or whatever they might make to get an exact amount.
Exact amount when they want to dose their edibles, when they want to know exactly how much they put in them. Yeah, that's the perfect solution for them.
I know when I'm dealing with these kind of products, one of the side effects is how sticky they are. You have very sticky oils and such. How do you deal with that?
Well, we deal with that. Also, I made a solution for that as well. So when you got big quantities of oils and waxes, you actually never have to touch them again.
Oh.
So they keep contained within the contained environment. They're distributed in a way that they never come in touch with air, so they're in a sealed environment, I could say.
Okay. Is this something that is going to require the user to be able to disassemble, clean, assemble anything?
Yeah, basically it works so that the medicine producers fill the cartridges, which are then used for distributing. Then what I did is I made 2 devices that distribute this substances. So what you need to do is you need to purchase your medicine in a cartridge, and then you buy the system from the dispensary as well. So you use those 2 together.
Okay.
And yeah.
We're speaking with Luca Fryer from Patron Dispenser, professional wax, oil, and paste system. You can find more at patrondispenser.com. And Luca, I recognize there's an accent here from America, from Europe?
Slovenia, South Europe. Yeah, we came here to present our products on the U.S. market, which we think is the most appropriate for what we are doing. Basically, it all comes from Mr. Rick Simpson, all this knowledge, who actually lives very close to us now, and he's doing all these conferences, educating the people in Eastern Europe, let's say like that.
So you've been able to distribute this product in Europe so far?
We're actually just coming out. We're coming on the market in 2 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm here to do the premiere, the presentation, and we start first deliveries are coming out in 2 weeks.
Well, that's great to hear. I've had friends have gone to Prague, gone to other places in Eastern Europe, and said that there's varying levels of tolerance for cannabis and its users. How are things where you're from, and how do you see things changing out there as we're legalizing here in America?
Well, what we have is we just tried to get that thing legalized, the medical part of marijuana business. And what we succeeded is we raised the double amount of signatures from people who endorsed our effort. But what government actually did is they just transformed it in a way that now the pharmaceutical companies can supply CBD and THC medicines, but weed is still illegal, and all the natural procedures are still illegal. So what we are waiting for now is, hopefully we're going to get a new legislation which will be European-wide and would cover all the European countries, and they would like to do it in a way that Spain did it, which is through cannabis clubs, and that would work, I think, for us.
I think that's what I've been seeing in Europe. My friend Jorge Cervantes out there in Barcelona has reported from these cannabis clubs. It seems that there's at least that tolerance there. And it's great to see this expansion happening, that European marketing and companies are coming to America to want to get involved with this market. And I think there's this cross-pollination in ideas of how to do this and how to legalize it. I'm really glad to see happening. The company is patrondispenser.com. You can find out more. Luca Fryer here presenting at the International Cannabis Business Conference. Anything else you'd like to tell our listeners?
Look for our products. I hope they'll be soon in your dispensary, and I hope you will enjoy using them as much as I do.
All right. Thank you so much, Luca. Let's go back to some music here while we enjoy our time at the Cannabis Conference.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
There we go. The International Cannabis Business Conference taking place February 15th and 16th, 2015 at the Hyatt Regency in downtown San Francisco, California. We'll bring you live coverage from the floor right here on 420radio.org. And it'll be a really great conference. So if you can make it there, you won't regret it. Stay tuned. We're back with the anti-drug public service announcement of the day, followed by a radical rant on how congressional Democrats look ready to cave on D.C. legalization. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show. We're back right after this.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
420 Radio, the home of marijuana experts. At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio. In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
Look, man, best dope you can buy. Try it.
I don't know. Hey, here comes Jessica and the Ghostbusters.
Hey, you guys want to try some dope?
No.
No.
No way. Thanks, Trace. When it comes to the question of drugs, friends or not, the only right answer is no.
This has been the anti-drug public service announcement of the day. To cure this sort of reefer madness, listen to the Russ Belville Show every weekday on 420radio.org. Adam Hand of Handmade Apparel produces quality custom designs for t-shirts, hats, and other apparel. Handmade Apparel is the official design shop for 420 Radio, among many clients who rely on Adam Hand for everything from short-run custom projects to full-run clothing lines. Visit handmadeapparel.biz to browse the selection of handmade gear or to get a personal quote for your own designs. Handmade Apparel, a proud supporter of 420radio.org.
You can't handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality generally.
Down the century, you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant. Welcome back, 45 after the hour, and today congressional Democrats look ready to cave on D.C. legalization. Oh man, 70% of the voters in Washington, D.C. approved marijuana legalization in their Initiative 71 in this year's election. Can you think of anything that passes in Washington, D.C. with 70%? Hell, can you think of anything that passes in Washington, D.C.? But apparently 70% of the vote is just not enough reason for Democrats in the U.S. Congress to stand up and support the will of the people. As you know, the District of Columbia is controlled by the U.S. Congress. The Congress has final approval over how the district spends its money. Maryland Representative Andy Harris, who, by the way, tried to stop decriminalization in his own district and did not succeed. This Representative Harris has added an amendment to this must-pass spending bill to bar Washington, D.C. from implementing its marijuana legalization law. Representative Harris, a Republican, worked with Representative Hal Roger of Kentucky, also a Republican, who is the chair of the House Appropriations Committee. And the two of them have put together this strategy to force Democrats to choose whether to side with 70% of Washington, D.C. voters or potentially shut down the government. Now, this isn't the first time Congress has played these anti-democratic shenanigans with Washington, D.C. In 1998, the voters in Washington, D.C. approved their medical marijuana initiative, only to have then Congressman Bob Barr, a Republican from Georgia, insert language into a spending bill that forbade the district from spending any money to count the votes from the election. Yes, that's right. In the nation's capital, the federal government acted to suppress the votes of its citizens. Eventually, the Supreme Court ruled, hey, this is America. You have to count votes. And I'm paraphrasing, of course. Representative Barr then returned with new language that prevented the district from spending its money to implement medical marijuana. The same tactic that Representative Harris is doing now with legalization. And ironically enough, Bob Barr, after he left Congress, became a lobbyist for medical marijuana, paid by the Marijuana Policy Project, and came to criticize and condemn the very action that he took to block medical marijuana in Washington, D.C. Now, it wasn't until 2010, when Democrats took control of both houses of Congress, that they got around to removing that barrier to medical marijuana. Still today, Washington, D.C.'s medical marijuana program is struggling 4 years later. And how many patients needlessly suffered for politics in those 12 years since 1998? And consider Republicans are taking control of both houses of Congress starting in 2015. So it's unlikely that any barrier to implementing Washington, D.C.'s legalization will happen within the next 2 years at least. So will it be another dozen years like the medical marijuana supporters waited? Right now is the only chance the Democrats have to fight for the will of the people. Now, Michael Collins, he's a policy manager at the Drug Policy Alliance Office of National Affairs, said, quote, Democratic leadership made it clear they would stand with voters on this crucial racial justice issue and push back against Republican opposition to the D.C. law. Democrats have always made claims of supporting D.C. home rule. Now is their chance to stand with 70% of the voters in the district who voted for marijuana reform, end quote. Democrats instead appear to be unable to stand at all, lacking the spine necessary to do so. Representatives Harris and Roger appear to be offering Democrats an out by leaving alone the district's recently passed decriminalization law. Democrats can then claim they negotiated in good faith with Republicans and saved the law that replaced criminal penalties for possession of marijuana with a $25 civil fine. So, let me see if I got this straight. Democrats agree not to give up any of their currently won ground in exchange for legalization that won by 7 out of 10 voters. Well, gosh, why don't they also just claim that they protected the district medical marijuana from extinction too? This is such a BS cover your ass tactic from the Democrats when you know darn well that Representative Harris couldn't go after the decriminalization law. It's a moot threat. Representative Harris realized that he couldn't go after DC decrim. He couldn't defund decrim, because how do you take money away from not arresting people? Representative Harris realized that if he took money away from implementing the DC decrim proposal, all it took away was the ability to write and process those $25 tickets, essentially leaving Washington, D.C. with no law against marijuana possession and nothing to enforce. So there was no threat ever that the Republicans were going to take the decrim law away. Democrats can't say they protected a decrim law that was never threatened. It's just, it's not surprising, though, to see these kind of undemocratic operations in our nation's capital if you've ever visited there. I remember my times in Washington, D.C. I've visited twice now, and whenever you see the cars going by, you can look at their license plates. And emblazoned on each one is the phrase, taxation without representation. You remember that phrase from our American history. It's part of our cultural identity. It's why we rebelled against England, is our colonies were being taxed without any representation. And right now, Washington, D.C. is essentially a colony of the federal government. Because right now in Washington, D.C., a city that has a population about the same as Portland, Oregon, my hometown, is ruled by a Congress where they have no vote in Congress. At least here in Portland, Oregon, I can vote for Representative Earl Blumenauer, and he's my voice in Congress. I can vote for Senator Wyden and Senator Merkley. They're my voices in the Senate. But Washington, D.C. only gets one delegate and no senators. One delegate, Eleanor Holmes Norton, who is a wonderful person, has been a staunch supporter of Washington, D.C. marijuana reforms, but she's a delegate. She does not get a vote in Congress. So over 650,000 residents of Washington, D.C. pay their federal taxes every year, and they never get any say in their own government. Now, Dr. Malik Burnett is a policy manager at Drug Policy Alliance. He's also the vice chair of the DC Cannabis Campaign, the group that was responsible for marijuana legalization, Initiative 71. Dr. Burnett said, quote, "In light of recent events in Ferguson, Missouri and New York, it is particularly disturbing that Congress would choose to overturn the will of the voters in a majority black city. D.C. voters chose to reform their marijuana laws, which have a direct impact on how communities of color interact with police. Congress is poised to undermine that," end quote. Now, Democrats can try to defend themselves with this delusion that decriminalization alone is enough protection for the young black men more frequently harassed by police, but the supporters of Initiative 71 were very clear about the racial implications of marijuana legalization. Before decriminalization, African Americans were 8 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than whites, despite similar use rates. After decriminalization, African Americans were receiving 77% of the tickets written for possession. Only legalization ends the racially biased enforcement of marijuana possession. Decriminalization still means that cops can stop and harass and frisk people over marijuana or the smell of marijuana or the claim of the smell of marijuana. Only legalization puts an end to the underground marijuana market that can be so devastating to minority communities. 70% of Washington, D.C. voters understood that. Why can't congressional Democrats? Here's the situation for Democrats. They can claim to be not standing up for legal marijuana so much as standing up for home rule and democracy. And that might even sway some Tea Party Republicans and libertarian types over to their side. And they're only in a position to do this for another month. Republicans take over in January in the Senate and continue and grow their majority in the House. And they're going to pass some budget to restart the government. So why not shut it down for a few weeks and get credit for being on the right side of history and re-energize a deflated youth base that didn't turn out for Democrats in 2014 in advance of the coming election in 2016. Get young people excited again about a Democratic Party that might actually stand up for the will of the people. And that's going to be a huge election issue in 2016. Democrats, why not take a stand now and make yourself the party of the future? And doing so, threatening a government shutdown, would also call the bluff of Republicans who always threaten a government shutdown to get their way on their issues. How could they complain too loudly about Democrats doing the same in support of a 70% vote? But no. They probably won't step up to the plate. Democrats don't want to face the wrath of a 2016 attack ad warning that Democrat so-and-so voted to shut down the government before Christmas to support pot smoking in the heart of our nation's capital. Jeez. So the executive branch is going to allow the legalization in Washington, Oregon, Alaska, and Colorado to continue, but the legislative branch is shutting down the legalization in its own home district. So what is the message our government is sending to the citizens when it comes to marijuana legalization? 4 states that voted for legalization by 52% to 56%, they're okay. But the one district that voted for legalization by 70%, they're not okay. These 4 states with legalization contain black populations that range from 2% here in Oregon to 4.4% in Colorado. They can handle legal pot. But the one district with 49.5% black population, they can't handle it? Or is it just that pot-hating politicians don't want to have to work in a city that will be proving their fears of legalization back home to be completely unfounded? Regardless the excuse, there's no excuse for congressional Democrats to not be standing up on this issue and to be seen as a party that, regardless of the issue, will stand up for the will of the people. And Republicans, Andy Harris, Hal Roger, the party that always claims to be about states' rights and local government, that always claims to be so against federal interference in private business and the people's will, you guys want to be the ones that are seen to be the Governor Wallace of this century, standing in the schoolhouse doors, screaming segregation now, segregation forever when it comes to marijuana? Do you really want to be hung with that epitaph in your political career? Anybody in Washington, D.C. who's on the wrong side of this legalization debate, it will be remembered in 2016. You congressional Democrats who aren't standing up for this will be remembered. you're already losing many of your voters, your natural base of voters among young people, for your intransigence on the marijuana issue. And you're going to see it usurped by younger, more libertarian-minded Republicans as time goes on. Mark my words. That's all the time we got for Hour 1, but stay tuned for Hour 2. Got some cool stories coming up, including how Washington's medical marijuana law might get fixed, and hecklers at Kevin Sabet's latest event at the Heritage Foundation. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.